They wanted Jessica Walters very badly, and then they also wanted Sophia Loren, but she turned it down because she wanted more money, and they also considered Elizabeth Taylor. But all of those people they didn't get, so they got me. Well, it's interesting that when my agent called me, I was on holiday in Marbella and asked me if I wanted to be in Dynasty, and I said, "What's that? Is that a Chinese restaurant?" And I never heard of it, but you know, it hadn't come to Europe. And then he sent me a couple of the sides, and I read them, and I thought, yeah, this could be good. And he said, this will probably be a 6-week gig, 6 episodes. They're bringing you in, and then you know you'll go back to England. So I said, okay, that's fine, that's cool. Nice to spend 6 or 8 weeks in LA. And so I brought myself to it, and the first scene I had was with the fabulous Brian Dennehy, who was interrogating me as to this whole drama that went on. It's quite a famous scene. And I had to wear the same outfit that an unknown actress had worn in the last episode, because they didn't know who they were going to cast. They wanted Jessica Walters very badly, and then they also wanted Sophia Loren, but she turned it down because she wanted more money, and they also considered Elizabeth Taylor. But all of those people they didn't get, so they got me. And I had to wear the big white hat and the veil and the sunglasses and the same suit which the woman had worn. And apparently it made quite an impact when I took off the veil and took off the sunglasses, and Aaron Spelling said, and he was a good friend of mine, that you know, they all sat in the screening room and said, "Oh my God, you know, we are so glad we cast her," something like that. Well, the character was somewhat cliched, I thought, in the writing. She was very vindictive, very venal, very angry, and she didn't have much of a sense of humor. And I felt that if she was going to become likable, because I do believe that if you're playing a role, even if it's the baddest of baddies, you have to have something about you that the audience will like. That she had to have a couple of things that were important. One was a sense of humor, and the other was her devoted love for her children, at which point there were only 2. And so I talked with the writers about this, and they I said, can I be a bit tongue-in-cheek, that I don't have to be so kind of serious? And they said yes. And so I thought that I tempered the evilness with some humor and some likability. And I remember that Laurence Olivier had said, and it's quite a famous thing in England that people know about, when he was playing Richard III, and he said to this famous director, Tyrone Guthrie, "I don't know how to play this role. I hate this man." And Tyrone Guthrie said, "You have to find something to like about him, otherwise you will not be believable." I think Alexis had a huge influence on lots of young women and some older women and some men. I think they loved the fact that she was up there in the boardroom and in the bedroom, and not taking no for an answer in any kind of situation, and being really, really strong and clever and manipulative, just like most of our businessmen are who are in business. I based her on a very, very famous man who's in business, who I won't mention.
Oh, that was my next question. What was?
Well, I put a bit of Donald Trump in there, I thought. And basically, a lot of a friend of mine called Cappy Badroot, who is an international jet setter. I wanted to have this international flavor in Alexis's costumes and her attitude. There was one quite famous scene when Henry Kissinger is in the show, and we're doing the Carousel Ball, and we were actually shooting it in Denver. And the director said, "Oh, well, just say something to Henry as he walks past." And so I was thinking, what can I say? What would Alexis say? And I said, "Henry, darling, I haven't seen you since we last met in Portofino." And Henry was somewhat, "Oh, really?" I think it's very flattering in some way, because it means that you did a very good job in what you were portraying. On the other hand, in terms of future roles, it is I will always be identified as Alexis Carrington Colby Dexter. Well, the cat fights were intensely popular. They were mostly between Crystal and Alexis. And I had been told when I first came to Hollywood by Gene Kelly, who is like my mentor in a lot of ways. He'd always said, "Don't do anything dangerous, kiddo. You're putting a stunt gal out of work." So I said, Linda liked to do her own stunts, and I said, "Well, you're putting a stunt gal out of work, but I'm not." And so I got this great stunt gal who was quite similar in build to me. And when it was time to get knocked down to the floor and pummeled heavily, I brought in Sandy, my stunt girl. I think it was the first time that knockdown, drag-out fights between two women had been seen on television. Before, I remember seeing a scene with Shirley MacLaine and another actress in Sweet Charity, and they just kind of pulled at each other's hair and went like that. And Linda and I went all out. And Linda is very strong, and she loves doing those kind of scenes, so she kind of ran the whole show in those scenes. Well, first of all, if you look at the actors in Dynasty, practically everyone was a 10 or almost a 10. They were the best looking bunch of actors that I've ever seen in a show. Better than Dallas, better than Charlie's Angels, because the three girls in Charlie's Angels. I mean, starting with John Forsythe, who was 62. They wouldn't cast a 62-year-old man today, when it's also ageist, as the lead that the two women are mad about. And Linda was in her late 30s, I was in my 40s, but we still all looked really good. And the people that they brought in, I mean, Emma Sams and Pamela Sue Martin and Diane Carroll, everybody was a perfect 10. And I watch it sometimes because it's shown on British television a lot, and I think, and there's another new character and another gorgeous woman, Tracy Scoggins. They were all, everybody was fabulous, and everybody was rich, and everybody had real problems. And I think that's what they liked. I think the clothes were a huge part of what made Dynasty fun. Remember that this was the 80s. This was the excessive 80s, the Reagan era. And we went all out. And I said to Nolan at the beginning, they had me in this black and white suit, and then they wanted to put me in a little tweed suit with a little Peter Pan collar. And I said, no, this is an international woman, a jet setter, and she wouldn't wear that. We have to go to the couture. We have to copy Pierre Cardin and Yves Saint Laurent and Valentino and have high style. And so they started doing that with me, which is when they started bringing out the big shoulder pads. Early in 1983, I think, Pierre Cardin brought them out. And I said to Nolan, that is a great look. With the shoulder pads, and then it makes your waist look smaller and your hips slimmer and more flattering than an Italian waiter. So that's when we started. And when I started getting very, very dressed up for every single scene, even in the boudoirs, they loved it. I mean, they loved it so much that every other actress also was dressed up to the nines. I think that things have changed a lot since then. I think that then viewers liked seeing people have problems. Now I think viewers like people going into operating rooms and having their guts sliced open and a lot of blood all over the surgeon's hands, or cops running and seeing somebody who's been shot. Or horror. Horror seems to be very popular these days. Obviously the fashion has changed quite a lot, I'm afraid, as you can see by the fact that they've cancelled several of the daytime soap operas, which were going for 30, 40 years. In fact, I was in one of those. I was in Guiding Light. It was amazing, the amount of famous people that we had. I think the first one that we had that was really famous was Rock Hudson, which was shortly before he died. And we had Ali McGraw and Helmut Berger and Charlton Heston, because they did a spin-off called The Colbys. It was so successful. Unfortunately, The Colbys wasn't nearly as good, and the viewers got a very wrong impression. They didn't know what to do. They asked me many times to be on The Colbys, and I refused. I said, I am loyal to Dynasty, and Alexis belongs in Dynasty. She doesn't belong in The Colbys. So they said, okay, well then we will have Charlton Heston come and do a scene with you, and Barbara Stanwyck will come and do a scene with you. And I said, that's fabulous. How great. And, you know, Charlton Heston came, and I did a scene with him. Well, my son Stephen was gay, and that was one of the reasons why his father hated him, because he almost killed, or did kill, I can't remember exactly what happened, I think his lover, Ted. And there was always this problem with Blake hating Stephen's sexuality and me embracing it, Alexis. She loved her son unconditionally, and with a, you know, if he was gay, so what? And it was great, because I think a lot of it empowered a lot of gay people, that that storyline. I think that with the Moldavian massacre, and with the sending several of our leading characters over to the Colbys, I think it started to hurt the show, and the ratings started to fall. And ABC didn't like it anymore. The suits at ABC wanted to get rid of it, but it was like the witch, that you can only get rid of her if you put the stake through her heart or something. So even though they tried to denigrate it, for example, the last season, when I had a very nice raise, making me at that point the highest paid woman on TV. Today, that's what they pay the maids in big shows. They then said, oh, but you're only going to be in half of the episodes. And this was at the time when Linda Evans decided that she needed a break, and she wasn't in them either. And Stephen, the gay son, who was played by Al Corley at that time, also decided that he didn't want to be in it anymore. So you had 3 of the top leading characters no longer in it. And I think, and I've watched some of those episodes, I think it lost its bite. It lost its excitement, and it lost a lot. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's a perception. I was put in a slot, you know, glamorous, bad, evil woman, and I think that has sort of stuck. And in fact, all through my career, even when I started, when I was 17, I always played bad girls or naughty girls or juvenile delinquents or girls gone wrong, something to do with the way I look. Not at all. I'd actually rather given up my career because I had 2 very young children, aged like they were 4 and 5. And I was a full-time mother. My husband was Anthony Newley, who was working very hard. I didn't feel the need to work. And then when my agent called and said, do you want to do Star Trek? Again, I said, what's that? Because I didn't watch it, and my 5-year-old, Tara, said, oh, Mommy, you must do it. It's a great program. You must do it. So I did it, and I had no idea, because I hadn't seen any of the previous ones. I read the script, and I thought the script was quite sweet. I had no idea that it would become so iconic, amazing. There's even little dolls of Edith Keeler out. There's dolls of Alexis as well. A new one came out this year. Oh, I loved doing Batman. It was huge fun. And again, I had my children, they came on the set and were absolutely fascinated watching me as the siren and doing that whistle, or that voice that she does, and everybody turns to stone. Yeah, it was a riot. Well, I had done comedy on stage. You know, I had just done a tour of Private Lives, which is a comedy, but it's more of a sophisticated comedy. It's not broad comedy. And the thing that I found the most difficult about doing the Roseanne show was that her husband was the producer, and he kept on rewriting. And I, as an actor, I always want to know exactly what my lines are going to be before I turn up in front of millions of people. and they kept on rewriting right up until the last minute, and I found that quite difficult.
Probably Tom Arnold, I would assume.
Tell who?
Tom Arnold, I think, was
Tom Arnold, that's right. And I said to him, Tom, I can't say that line, it's so tacky. And he said, we're a tacky show. Roseanne, I think, is a very insecure person. And I thought that on the first day that we met. And I think she tried so hard to make this show work. And she had conflict with her husband, Tom, and because she was the producer and the writer and the star, she was wearing all these hats, and I think it was very, very tough for her, and very, very tough to be funny under those circumstances. But she was. I mean, I have great respect for her as a comedian. I think she's a wonderful comedian, very, very funny. But I think she has a lot of demons. I think so. That's what I always wanted to be. I never wanted to be, you know, in the films. I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and I started to be an actress. And my first semester off, I went and I was at a Maidstone repertory company, and I was the assistant stage manager and the assistant prop master, and I understudied all the small parts and had to do, you know, was basically a gopher. But every week we did a different play. So I did that for 6 weeks. It was a very good learning ground. Well, you'll have to read one of my many, many beauty books and get online. My secret is I enjoy life. I'm not neurotic. I had a very happy childhood. And I realized very early on, because my father was an agent, that this is a tough, tough business, and you have to be able to take rejection and not always think that you're top of the heap. I don't consider that I am a big persona. I mean, I don't have an entourage. I don't even have a personal assistant right now. I do my own hair, I do my own makeup, I choose my own clothes, I don't have a stylist. I do what I want in life a lot, as much as I can, as much as one can with children and grandchildren. No, not really. I garden, I write, I cook. I don't do this all the time. I spend a great deal of time watching old movies on TV, because that's my favorite way of relaxing. So I do watch TV, but I watch old movies. Yes, because I don't think that very many British actors had been on TV at that time. And there was a discussion with my agent and Aaron as to whether I would do American. Now, I have played loads of American roles, so it wouldn't have been a problem for me. And I'm not that terribly English, and I don't talk like that. So they decided that she was, you know, Alexis Morel, born in England and came to America when she was 16 and met Blake and fell in love. I would describe Dynasty as 100% entertainment, and very good entertainment, certainly the first 3 years. And maybe camp was the slapping scenes and the falling into the water scenes. Yeah, they were probably a little over the top. But that's what made it Dynasty. Well, I think when you're playing a character, you become that character. Well, certainly I do. I become that character when I'm on stage, and then when I'm off stage, I become Joan. Because if I was, you know, doing my part and saying, I'm Joan Collins playing Alexis, that would be ridiculous. I am Alexis when I'm doing it. There were some horror films that I did. I can't even remember them. I was queen of the horror films for a while in the early 70s that were a bit upsetting, because I'm not a fan of horror at all, or violence. You have to put bread on the table for your kids. You don't always have, you know, the pick of the crop. Do you know how many actors are out of work? Do you know how many actors would kill for any job right now? They probably served you your coffee this morning, or, you know, your donut. Or acting is a profession that is so overcrowded. There are so many of us, and as you know, as everybody gets older, there's particularly for women over the age of 40. I mean, it's seriously overcrowded. Yeah, most actors do not have the privilege of what I call the De Niro factor of, you know, being able to choose.
Well, you know what's really fascinating too about Dynasty is that, and then you read some of the press from that time period, it was such a shocking thing that women over 40 could be sexually attractive. I mean, it seems so silly now, but at the time it was a big deal that these old women, so young, but I mean, it really was kind of a breakthrough in sort of helping us realize that women of all ages can be interesting and attractive and sexy.
Yes, I think that was a big breakthrough. And I think when I did Playboy, when I was 49, I think that was a breakthrough as well. But I did say, that's it, I'm not doing any more of these. You know, it's very hard to say. It really does. I did a show in England at the beginning of the year, last year, Dick Whittington, and we did 12 shows a week. And that was really, really tough. But I enjoyed it, you know, and I enjoyed the end when the audience whooped and cheered and stood up. It's great, and I do a one-woman show now where the audience, you know, stand up and, you know, very vociferous. So you get that feedback from the theatre, and you also get the fact that you can really work on your scenes every day, but then there's a huge boredom factor that comes in, you know, going and I went on tour. I did a play with Linda for 8 months, 9 months we went on tour, and my God, towards the end it was so boring. The same lines, the same, oh God, yeah. Whereas with film and with TV, you know, it can be fresh and exciting all the time. So I guess, you know, I do like TV. I think I'd like to come back on TV. My favorite scenes were with Dex, with Michael Nader. I thought we had a tremendous frisson between us, a great chemistry, great sexuality, anger between us, and the scenes really sparked. I liked him as an actor and as a person. And I was very sad when they had him go off and screw my daughter or something so that Alexis would never want to have anything more to do with him. And I kept on going to the writer saying, please, please bring Dex back. Please let them have another affair together. And they sort of brought him back. He was supposedly passionately in love with Alexis and could never get her out of his system. And she could take him or leave him, but I think she really was in love with him. I played it that I was really in love, but I wasn't about to get hurt again as I'd been hurt by Blake. Well, it's, you know, Snow White and the Evil Queen. It's good against evil. It's blonde versus brunette. It's classic. I mean, in so many old movies particularly, there's always been the clash of the two women together. I mean, Philadelphia Story, you have the beautiful ice-cold Grace Kelly and the sharp-witted Celeste Holm. Yeah, it's the conflict. The conflict is really important, and I think that's what I think the audience loved, the conflict. And I thought it was great. I loved it when I saw a scene coming up in which Linda and I were going to have conflict, or then Diane and I.
And the first conflict you had with Linda, you were so good as an actress that she was literally shaking, not the character, but Linda was shaking.
Yes, she came up to me and said, that felt so real. Did you mean it? And I said, no, darling, it was acting. Because that was something that Robert Mitchum had said to me in a movie I'd done a couple of years previously, when he had to hit me and push me and throw me over his shoulder and spank me. And it was, when I read it, I thought, oh, I'm going to be black and blue. And he didn't touch me. And I said, that was so amazing. How did you do all of this and, you know, not hurt me? And he said, honey, it's called acting. So I kind of took that as a mantra. Probably has had negative consequences, because I've said what I felt about the fact that ABC tried to kill our show, and perhaps I haven't always been as nice about other actors as I should be. But one of the things I hate is hypocrites, and I don't think I'm a hypocrite. And yeah, I think I am overly candid. In fact, I've just written a book called The World According to Joan in England. It's be coming out in America next year, in which I express all my thoughts and opinions on everything from men, manners, morals, the children of today, the yobs of today, and everything. I think it would be very difficult because I think that the opportunities that I had, we're talking about the 50s now, you know, that was centuries ago, to be in repertory, to be able to be doing photographic modeling, to be spotted by an agent and said, I think you should be in the films, and be whisked away to the film studio at the age of 17 and start doing movies, big movies, and then also be able to go out and do plays at the same time. I was under contract to Rank and I could go and do plays. I don't think that there are that many opportunities, besides which I think that the media is so intrusive today on young actresses. I think it's very hard for them to step out of the circle that they have to stay in. You know, it would be hard to go and do something. Like, I really admire Nicole Kidman, and she did a play in England about 15, 14 years ago called The Blue Room, and she played a scene in the nude, totally in the nude. And I thought, my God, that is so brave and must be so releasing. Of course, she does have, like, the best body in the world, but it was interesting to do that. Well, my whole family was in the business. My father didn't want me to be in the business, but he let me go to RADA, the Royal Academy. I took the audition for it when I was 15, which was terrifying because the people who judge you were John Gielgud and Dame Edith Evans and several other huge luminaries. So I got in, and because I wanted to make some pocket money, when a photographer came to RADA, he said, I want to see the 10 most beautiful girls at RADA. So we were wheeled out, the 10 of us, and he chose me to be his muse in various things that don't occur now, illustrating short stories in magazines about girls gone wrong, girls being chased by axe murderers, and then teenage fashion. I did that, and then because of doing that, well, which I did in between my studies, you know, an agent saw my picture and got in touch with me and brought me into his office and said, do you want to be in the films? And I said, no, I'm going to be an actress and a proper actress on the stage. I don't want to be in the films. They can't act. Anyway, he said, well, you'll make a bit of money and you can do, I think you'll do very well. So he's got me a few small parts in 3 or 4 films. And then I got a big part. I was offered a big part in a film called I Believe in You, and I had to give up my studies because Sir Kenneth Barnes, who was the head of RADA, said that I couldn't do both, and that, you know, it was ridiculous that I was going off to be a film actress when, you know, theatre was the only thing that mattered. And from then on, I worked with Rank for 2.5 years. I did a lot of movies, and then Rank sold me to 20th Century Fox, because Daryl Zanuck saw some of my work, and off I went to 20th Century Fox to star in The Girl in the Red Velvet Swing, and that was it. So I was very lucky, and I wasn't even 21. Well, I didn't think of whether it was prestigious or not. I thought it must be the most unbelievably glamorous, fabulous, wonderful place in the world, because I used to write off to Hollywood movie stars for their pictures, and I got Humphrey Bogart and Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly and all sorts of people. And so it was glamorous and gorgeous and fabulous when I arrived. Yeah, I was interested in Hollywood movie stars, yes. And I kept scrapbooks of people, you know, Ginger Rogers, Veronica Lake, and cut pictures out of magazines. And I still have the scrapbooks. Well, I've always thought that the greatest comedienne on TV was Lucille Ball. Her timing was immaculate, perfection. And the fact that her shows were on all the time, you can learn a great deal from watching them. And I think there is a different set of tools, but the bottom of the comedy is realism and perfect timing, and of course a good script, because if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the screen, you know. So it's very difficult to try and be funny when your material is not funny. But of course, Lucille Ball used to be able to make anything funny. And Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett was a great comedian. Well, her versatility, for one thing. Her, just her timing. Her sense of timing was impeccable. Her looks, when she comes down is with the Scarlett O'Hara curtains, with the rail in the curtain rail still in, was one of the funniest things ever seen on TV. Iconic.